resolved, Mia Gunn
St. Carol. St. Carol of the bookcases.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monmouth City Council for the evening of Tuesday, October 5th. We are completely virtual this evening as we just have a couple of items, including a work session. And our city manager, Marty Wine, is tonight with her colleagues. The International City and County Managers Association is meeting in Portland, Oregon. So she's assisting with that this evening. And thank you, Phyllis, for being here with us to keep us moving.
That would be Lane's job.
If you could go ahead and do the roll call, please, Phyllis.
Councillor Belts.
I'm here, sorry.
Councillor Carey.
Camera issues.
here.
Councillor Lopez.
Here.
Councillor McKeel.
Here.
Councillor Oberst.
Here.
Councillor Salinas Oliveros.
Here.
Right.
I'm here as well. And
Already marked you off. Sorry.
there you go. For the record, the mayor's here. And so for the flag salute this evening, we can all stand in place. And Councillor Carey, if you would lead us in that, please.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Our first order of business, as usual, our consent calendar this evening consists of the minutes of our last meeting, which was a month ago, September 7th. And if there are no additions or corrections to point out, then I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
I would move adoption of Phyllis's typically wonderful set of minutes.
Second, I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst and Councilor Salinas Oliveros. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Great, thank you very much. We do at this time would entertain any public comment. Phyllis let me know she did not receive any comment prior to the meeting this evening, and I do not see anyone with us other than our staff and our media reporter. So at this point, we'll go ahead and move right into our business agenda. And our first item, we have with us members of our Monmouth Police Department to present an application for an OLCC liquor license. And go ahead.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Okay. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm Sergeant Mike Strack, and I'm with the police department, and I have been tasked with doing the liquor license for the new Circle K store that's going in. So they made the application with OLCC, and then it came to us, and I did the limited background of the people that are affiliated with the new business, and then I'm bringing it forward to you guys here through this presentation. So as you guys know, if you haven't seen it already, they've already started changing the signs and everything over to Circle K. We all knew it as Porter's or Shell, and basically it looks like it's just going to be a facade change. Talking to Circle K Inc., their plan is to retain the current staffing from the Shell Porter station. And the only thing they're doing is simple interior changes, as far as a couple of different things are being sold that Circle K stores do that others don't. And then all of the alcoholic beverages such as beer, some limited wine selections and stuff like that are all going to be very, very similar. As you guys know, Shell and Porter's has been, we've renewed their liquor license for the last several years. And so even though Circle K is new to Monmouth, this is really going to be very similar business-wise. So it's kind of straightforward. In the process of completing the background, I did look at the past year of history for Porter's, Shell, and then also the last year of history of Circle K when it was in Independence on Monmouth Street, just to give you guys kind of an idea of what happens at those locations. Not much has changed since the renewal presentation that I gave you guys for Shell. We respond to the typical types of calls there, such as some assaults, harassments, trespasses, thefts, disorderly conducts, and emotionally disturbed persons. When you're looking at these, sometimes they can sound scary, but really, Porter Shell has always been calling us for assistance and always cooperates with us very well. So they're not a business that really brings a lot of this stuff. It just happens there, and they're very quick in response to call us. Same was true for Circle K when it was Independence. Similar types of calls, but they were always willing to work with law enforcement, and they were always calling to have us come and deal with things before they became a bigger issue. And then once I did the limited background, there was really no areas of concerns that I was able to identify when it comes to changing the business from Porter's to Circle K. They've been very, very good to deal with so far, and they've always been available to me when I called them. With that being said, the council does have the option to make a recommendation to OLCC in favor of approving a liquor license for Circle K Stores, Inc. You can make a recommendation to OLCC against the approval of a liquor license for Circle K Stores, Inc., or you can make no recommendation at all. It is my recommendation that we move to have a recommendation in favor of approving the liquor license for Circle K Stores, Inc. You guys have any questions?
No. Anything for Sergeant Strack from his report? Does look fairly straightforward and with some good history, even though it's a brand new to us owner. Councillor Carey.
Officer Strack, thank you for a very complete and thorough report. Appreciate your diligence and your, sort of application of your experience with that particular premises. So nicely done. And with that, I'd move that we send an OLCC a recommendation in favor of approving a liquor license for Circle K Stores Incorporated.
And I would second that recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Carey, for the motion and Councillor Belts for the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? Great. Sounds like a unanimous recommendation to move forward. So thank you for forwarding that on and thank you for the report.
Thank you, guys.
Our only other is, Councillor Salinas Oliveros, we're just waiting. Okay. Our only other item of business this evening was a discussion that that I wanted to put forward as we are nearing the end of the year and potentially looking at reconvening our budget committee. And should we have openings, we had piloted a new process for getting a little bit more information from candidates for the budget committee and the planning commission only. The reason for those two committees, they are can be much more technical in nature than many of our other boards and commissions. They do have, the Planning Commission in particular has some extra requirements. There are some allowances and restrictions based on occupation, as well as residency, which is the common requirement for our boards and commissions. So trying to, and they both really entail a lot more work potentially outside the meeting than some of our boards and commissions. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting folks who understood the commitment, were able to make that commitment, but also try and increase our diversity. We do have some folks who've been on many of our boards and commissions for years and years, providing that wisdom and background to those groups. But also we have folks who do volunteer for more than one of these boards and commissions, and trying to look at starting to increase our outreach, but also really understand more about the folks who are applying. So thanks to Councillor Salinas Oliveros, we had sort of drafted and piloted a program last time that included some more sort of trying to look at the applications we received and score them if we had more than one candidate for an opening, and then thought of some sort of interview questions to further get information from those applicants. So sent that draft process around and I got some feedback from a couple of you, and I incorporated that feedback into a document that Phil has forwarded to you, and I hope others have had a chance to sort of review that and create your own thoughts. I did take the comments I received and I sort of put them as general thoughts or questions in front of the sample scoring process, scoring rubric, and then possible interview questions. So At this time, I think generally speaking, the thoughts were that the process is valuable, that there might be some good reasons to do this, and that there were some nuances to the questions perhaps related to how, I think the interesting discussion here is how do we continue to open this up to diverse folks when a lot of the questions seem to require some inside knowledge and inside baseball, so to speak. So you get folks, you want to make sure they understand the process, but then we also want to include more people. So I would be, and actually Councilor Salinas Oliveros addressed some of that a little bit in some comments to me that came after this report. So I'm just going to go around and ask people to give your thoughts in general about what I sent out or about the process in particular. So anyone have thoughts about it? Or do you want to elaborate on the comments that I included in here if they were yours? Councilor Belts.
Oh, I apologize that I wasn't able to send you my thoughts. I have two thoughts associated with this. One is I would have loved it if before I applied for the Arts and Culture Commission, if there was just even a half-page document that said, so you want to be on the Arts and Culture Commission. Maybe you should read the charter right here with a click. And maybe you should know, just help people so that they know kind of what's expected for them to know. I think that would be awesome if we could create that document. The other thing that's not in there that I want to throw out there because of a conversation I recently had was about the residency requirements, specifically for the senior center. Our senior center serves 4 different communities, yet we only have 1 seat on that board that allows somebody from outside the community. And there is currently somebody that lives in Independence who would be an ideal person who wants to be on that board, but is excluded because this person simply lives in Independence. So I really would like to talk about that further. Granted, we don't want all Independence people on Monmouth Council or on Monmouth commissions, but I think if we're going to talk about inclusion, we kind of need to add that in too, even though, yes, it's Monmouth, but I'd like to talk about that further at some point.
Okay. Yeah, and Councilor Lopez and then Councilor Salinas Oliveros.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much, Councilor Salinas Oliveros, for helping to put in a lot of the background work here. I have a couple thoughts and comments. I'd like to start by posing actually Lane a question that Roxanne just brought up. Is that that rule about where board and commission members are living, is that a city rule? Is that a state rule? Is that something that we can even change easily?
I'll take a look at the statute. There is a statute in the Oregon Revised Statutes that gets at planning commission membership, and I'll take a look at that in just a minute. But the rest of your boards and commissions, except for budget committee does require that they be residents. But library, senior center, arts and culture, those membership restrictions are all governed by city code. So you can amend your code provisions to allow more non-resident members on those if you want to. Again, I'll just double check planning commission and let you know if there's what I see there, but that at least addresses the rest of the boards and commissions.
And then to be able to change that, is that a huge process for say arts and culture, as Councilor Belt? Okay.
It would just take an ordinance like any other code amendment that you would adopt.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And then I did want to touch on a few other things. Thank you very much for the background there, Lane. there is a question here, and I'll go a little out of order. There's a question here about whether or not any process like this subverts the charter. The charter currently gives the mayor power to appoint with consent of council. I think that these are these are informational pieces, and I don't foresee, although I'd be interested in hearing what the rest of you all say, but I don't foresee that any of this being absolute and overriding, but just informational pieces to be able to inform those decisions that the mayor would make and future mayors would make and future councils would likely consent to. So knowledge is a good thing. I do have a lot of heartburn about some of these benchmarks, and it's contained in the document that you sent. Very, very thorough, your thoughts and considerations, but trying to make sure that the individuals that are making decisions for our community, especially pivotal decisions that are made in budget and planning committees or planning commissions, that those individuals represent our residency, our citizens, and that they represent our citizens not just in a specific number, but that they represent our citizens in a variety of backgrounds, age ranges, a variety of races, and I think that anything that we do here does have the potentiality, the real potentiality to really squash diversity, and I have some big concerns about that. When I think about how we can better prepare people, I do think that perhaps there's a better way to onboard individuals, and a better way to support them in their roles. And I was actually listening to a piece on the radio today that Snapchat is starting a new initiative to try to get younger individuals and people of color involved in local boards and commissions like this. And and they're doing it through information and through trying to ask questions about interests and use that to support them, as opposed to using these questions to try to filter, right? And so I think that we've got a lot of good things here, but if we could use this and come at it from hey, let's ask some questions about their interests, their background, and then use that maybe to find better ways to support them instead of filter them, that might be a worthy pursuit.
Thanks. And I know Phyllis had something and Lane had something. And Rebecca, is it okay if we hold your question?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Get that input. Thanks. Lane, go ahead. And then
Yeah,
Phyllis.
just check the state statute. State statute doesn't have a residency requirement. It does have the requirement about members engaged in real estate development and not more than 2 members engaged in the same profession. But the residency requirement is a local requirement. So again, would be something you could address in a code amendment if you wanted to.
And that's just
And
for,
what it says now is the council and the mayor may appoint a non-resident member if that member has certain qualifications and skills that are deemed appropriate and interest to serve on the commission.
thanks. Phyllis?
Correct. And I was going to note that we just had updated, well, I'm not sure how many years ago now, all of our ordinances to reflect that. I mean, the idea of having people in town serve on our boards and commissions is that we want in-town people to do our best interest. We could get somebody from out of town who may want to make a mess of it. Hopefully we would avoid that, but that's a possibility.
Yeah, thank you. Just so that we know, the ordinances for each of the boards and commissions is a link on the page of that board or commission. So Roxanne, those are there. It's the it's the ordinance though, right? It's the enacting language. It can be a little bit wordy and bureaucratic. And so actually Councillor Carey has mentioned to us a suggestion, and Councillor Salinas Oliveros sort of tied it in here, and it speaks to Councillor Lopez's recent suggestion that rather than just the enacting ordinance, you know, use video, use some other communication method that would explain to folks what that commission does or what their role is. Might be another way to get folks interested in it. So,
One more
yes.
thing. There is a little blurb on the opposite side of the application that just like a short paragraph that tells what those boards and commissions all do. But that can be revised. I'm just saying that's what we have now.
Yeah, there is absolutely a little summary on each, on the application itself, and then on the website on those board and commission pages, an actual link to the enacting language. So go ahead, Councillor Salinas Oliveros.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You hit on some really important aspects here, and this is really great that we're looking at it. This is right up, my alley. This is really what we want to prepare. We want to have people want to serve in our community and that diversity. And you mentioned a little bit, Mayor Coons, about the feedback of, I looked at it as an equitable start for everybody. If we did have some kind of orientation or video that was just really straightforward. This is who we are. This is, why it's important to serve. Here's an example of what the tree committee did last year, and give some real tangible things about what it's like to be a volunteer on each commission. What is it that we're going to be looking for? How do you apply? Here's the process. Here's the rubric. Here's everything you need. This is the things, and this is what transferable skills are. This is what, and so that we give everybody an equitable start, and that information, that onboarding, like Councillor Lopez was speaking about. I think you kind of assume that maybe those with more experience or education would complete an application differently than somebody who does not. That's not necessarily the case. And so I think just kind of helping them along, that would be a really great start. And then making it exciting. So, why volunteer for the city? What do volunteers get out of that? And for like when I'm trying to advertise an internship or advertise something for students, it's like, this is how it's going to benefit you. This is, it's going to be great on your resume, and it's going to be great when you go to any job, because they're looking for leadership skills, they're looking for collaborations, they're looking for working in teams, and that's actually over 50% of the job. It's the EQ, the emotional intelligence, versus your skills. And I think as a city, we have so much to offer in that area to any volunteer of any background that they can continue to use in the future. So there's so many, and to make it more tangible, exciting, really looking at how we're advertising, where we're advertising. Is it English and Spanish? Is it quick? I love the idea of going in and reading the charter. Most people won't do that. It's long, it's tedious, but maybe if we hook them in, in writing class, and how people hook you in. And maybe that's what we think about. How do we hook in, and entice our community to serve, and reaching out to the high school? They can use this in their government class, reaching out to Western, and there's so much great that we do that it's a shame that we don't have more volunteers. So, there's a lot in here. I put a lot of this feedback, and then looking at, how to get people to explain things, and even maybe having them write a paragraph about, what do they think about our core values? How does that apply? How do they think it applies? And I don't know. I put in some stuff in there about that. But so there's a lot of things that we can do to strengthen this, to be inviting. A lot of times, depending on how you grow up, your cultural background, it could be all about the invitation. And so how do we do that? But there's some really great work here. And I think that onboarding piece is pretty key.
Yeah, those are great comments. And of course, onboarding is different for different boards and commissions. Budget committee, we have serious onboarding. They have multiple meetings with staff and, you know, things to prepare. Planning commission also has training, which they're required to have. So there are some of those, and others are obviously much less formal. But having some preparation would be good and fun. And now we just have to figure out the resources, the manpower to do this. I think we all agree, though, that there are some great things we can do to make this more inviting and get the word out better for all of these boards and commissions, but we don't have staff to put it together. So that's going to be another issue. Councillor Carey and then Councillor McKee.
I think we're talking about two issues here. One, we're talking about the recruitment phase, and specific to the agenda, we're talking about the selection process. Now, I think it's wise to sort of interlock the two. Rebecca sort of made reference to that, and I think that's good. But when we're talking about selecting members, if we want to be involved, and you know, it's the mayor's call on this, but we've sort of opened it up, and I think it's good. The two commissions that make boards or commissions that make the most impactful and momentous, I suppose, decisions are planning and budget. So that's where I think we need to be detailed. I don't know that we need to go through this whole thing for the tree board. You know, I think we recruit to that, absolutely. But, and if you look at what we have, and, you know, it's hard. Some of the language is difficult because it talks about reading the charter statement for the budget committee. Well, there isn't one. It's not in the charter. It's elsewhere, but it's not in the charter. And if you look at what we have written, provided, really the budget committee doesn't have much. I mean, it's an information source as much as anything else, because it's very limiting in terms of what we have written. And so, you know, while people would want to jump on the budget committee because they're going to, you know, be a voice for fiscal responsibility, they don't have a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of. The charge is pretty simple. Planning, on the other hand, there are some watershed decisions that are made, not just recommending to us, but they make some at the commission level. They make some land use decisions sort of on their own. So, you know, I think we need to make certain that we have people that are, especially in planning, that are, if not conversant now, soon to be conversant in that language. Suzanne does a nice job of explaining it all, but it's pretty detailed. Budget, on the other hand, you know, might be a good entry for somebody who doesn't know a lot but is interested, and they can learn a lot. And then the other ones, while they're significant, the decisions they make don't quite carry the gravity that the others do. I've got more comments that we get further into this, but that'll do for now.
Great, thanks. Councillor McKeel?
So I kind of lost track a little bit. So this recent copy that we have where it's in, the font is in red, where you're going to ask the occupation, and is that you're thinking of putting that in the application, but you would ask what their occupation is or what their skills are?
Yeah, the items in red on the front that said general thoughts were the feedback I'd gotten from some of us about process. The other things, no. So I did make a couple of changes also based on other comments that I have, but the general thoughts are what's up for discussion. Are these points we need to take into account on this process?
So I think a combination, I like that people will have to state what their skills are, what their interest area is for this commission or the board, and their occupation. But then I think it's a legitimate question to say, will this eliminate people? So I think with that, then you also can include in the application an interview question, the fourth, I don't know, one of those, but it looks like what is the fourth one down? What would you say is the biggest issue or concern facing Monmouth that this commission will address? And then the person can bring out knowledge that they have that doesn't come from the credential or an occupation. So there can be people very knowledgeable, but don't have the resume. And so I think including both would be really good. The other thing that I think we need to add to all of our applications for any of the boards or commissions is ethnicity. And with that, I know I'm getting into the recruiting part, but it'd be very nice on that landing website where they list all of I had it and it's now gone. In that landing website where it lists all the boards and commissions to very clearly state our shared value about inclusive community, because I think there may be an expectation from some residents in Monmouth that they aren't welcome. So having a clear statement on that page, I think would do a lot to change that impression. Maybe not enough, but it will do something.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I do want to mention a couple of things, and then Councilor Oberst let you talk. On the scoring rubric itself, after I sent things out to you, I had a couple of thoughts about maybe rewording some of the questions on the scoring rubric, which are actually the application questions. So it asks, have you read the charter of the Board or Commission you're interested in? And we had a score of 0 to 5. And, the suggestion is make that yes or no. It's either 1 point or it's not. But another question I thought about adding, and this kind of reflects what I'm hearing, what else do you know about the work of the Board or Commission? So it's not just have you read it, but what else do you know of their work? And if we ask that question, that would give folks an opportunity. We wouldn't necessarily score it, but it would give them an opportunity to explain to us. My neighbor told me all the stuff the tree board does. So, and then the other thing I had thought of on the third question in the scoring rubric, which is what experience or expertise do you have? What about perspective? If we say what experience, expertise, or perspective do you have that is relevant to your board or commission? Is that too vague, or would that maybe get somebody to think differently about what they'll bring to it? And then the other change I thought about making was we shouldn't score the final question, right? So any additional comments you'd like to make, you don't score that. That's just an opportunity, again, to get people to think about what they want to say about this. Anyway, that kind of, I hear a little bit that might address some of the things we're talking about. Councilor Oberst and Councilor Carey.
So I would like to sort of echo what John said earlier, pick up this document, board and commission appointment process. But what I've heard a lot of is it's about the recruitment side of things. And how do we broaden our recruitment? And Rebecca, the ideas that you threw out there were fabulous, and the idea of trying to reach out to a broader slice of the community. Absolutely. as I'm looking at the boards and commissions we've got right now, I'm really concerned about membership numbers on some of them. My spouse is on the Arts Commission. They are one body away from no quorum. And I'm wondering if for some of what I have thought of as minor boards and commissions, that maybe that becomes a majority of the appointed members instead of a majority of the positions, so that they can go down a body or two and still do business. Because it's the smaller commissions, it starts to get kind of chancy. We had actually 2 members of the Arts Commission was a couple who both quit at the same time, and that blew a big hole in the Arts Commission right now, arts and culture. I do want to comment on the idea of more out-of-towners on the boards and commissions, and this is going to be a absolutely raw political statement with no apologies for that, but these folks are at some level spending Monmouth taxpayers' money, and we might want to be sure that we have Monmouth taxpayers making the decisions on, and so if you start to have a senior board that, it serves 4 communities, that's a decision that those communities have made to not have a senior center. And so are we then beholden to members of those communities to give them decision-making power in Monmouth? I just, trying to put a sort of wraparound on that. So the other part of this is the whole process of who do we pick and appointing them. And I was the one who raised the point about the charter. I sat in CISA's seat for 10 years. And if you read our charter, there are weak mayor systems, and there are really weak mayor systems, and then there's Monmouth's system. And the mayor doesn't even get a vote on firing the city manager, for God's sakes. The mayor has no power in our system, with one exception, and that is the power of appointment. As this was first presented, and CISA, I want to thank you for the changes that you have made in this document. As this was first presented, it could be read as council's going to do the appointing and mayor just kind of rubber stamps it. And I was dead set against the idea that the mayor doesn't appoint. And so when we get into the pieces of this that are about the review of the applicants and scoring a rubric and all that, I'm good with that, as long as at the end of the day, even if council says, gee, you should really appoint this person, and the mayor says no, that the council isn't going to second guess that. I do worry that this is fine for this mayor and this council, but the next mayor may not want this system. And once it's put in place, it's going to be hell to ever change it. A new mayor comes in with anywhere from 3 to 6 sitting councilors and wants to change a system that has the councilors really involved in it. And I worry about how you make a change to this system once it is put in place. So, I'm dumping all that out there as I say, somebody who sat in CISA's seat for 10 years. And I'm really sensitive about attempts to take away the only power that the mayor of Monmouth has according to charter. I would like to see that CISA keeps control of at least that one last little piece, and any subsequent mayors.
The mayor can veto any ordinance within 3 days after its passing, FYI.
Oh,
so
yeah,
power.
yeah. So, but thanks, CISA. This good changes that you've made to this, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that's still clear, right? And that I put John's comment in there to share, but I certainly believe this would still be a process where it's giving additional information to the mayor to make an appointment, and with consent of council. And so, yes, potentially the interview would be the mayor rather than the subgroup, or just getting more eyes on the applications to begin with or something. That would be another option. But yes, Councilor Bell. And by the way, I pulled up a couple of the charters. They all say that the majority of members of the commission shall constitute a quorum. So it doesn't say the majority of, that it has to be a majority of the positions, but just of the members. So Lane, I would think if we're down to 5 members out of 7, the quorum is
Yeah.
3.
I think you could interpret that. The other language would be that it takes a majority of the whole number. And that would indicate that you do have to have 4 if you've got a 7-member commission, but just a majority of the commission. I think that would really address the appointed members and be a majority of those.
Thank you. Yeah, it says a majority of the members of the commissions. Okay, Councilor Belts.
Just a couple thoughts. And again, I respect that I can say Mayor Oberst, because once you have a title, you always get the title, right? I respect your 10 years. I also want to.
Mayor, you don't get to keep it.
Oh, you don't get to keep it? Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay, fine. Councilor Oberst.
If you're in a position that only one person at a time can have, you don't get to be the honorable and you don't get to keep your title. If you're in a position where lots of people were that, you actually get to keep those honorifics.
Well, golly gee, now I learned something new. Jeez. I want to address what Phyllis had said, where she mentioned a concern about somebody coming in from outside and mucking up a commission. There's however many other people on that commission, and I just don't. It could happen, but I kind of doubt anybody would go to the trouble. I'm going to get on that Arts and Culture Commission and mess up arts and culture in Monmouth. So I would kind of put that concern pretty low. Councilor Oberst, I certainly respect the idea that there is a concern about they're spending Monmouth taxpayer dollars specifically for the senior center. They're also paying dues as a member of the senior center. So they're putting money into the city. And so just something to think about. And again, it's not, it's, go ahead.
The dues go to the Friends of the Senior Center. They don't pay dues to the city itself, I don't believe.
What money of the city do they vote on then? What money does the senior center get to spend? It's city money. I mean, I'm not questioning that it's true. I just don't know.
Right, the dues do all go to the Friends. Anything that Barbara does for this city or for the seniors that's spent with city money. So, I mean, that would be any board or commission, that anything we do, like promoting arts and culture stuff. Most boards and commissions don't actually have money to spend, honestly.
That's that again, that was my question. I just want to remind us all, we're talking about inclusion, and yes, we're a separate city. Independence is a separate city, but at what point do we stop saying, well, we're sorry, there's this border, and smack me in the back of the head if that's a bad idea, but it just seems like we're moving more and more towards that. Let's just consider it at least, and not dismiss it out of hand. That's all I'm asking.
I don't think anyone totally dismissed that, so that's good. Councilor Lopez and Councilor Carey.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Gosh, a lot of really great conversation and ideas here. I just wanted to loop back to a couple points there. Councilor Oberst, I really like your consideration in trying to safeguard this as a decision that the mayor makes. I also don't want to. I want to be very. I'd like to be very intentional about, how much we put down on paper in this way. I do have some concerns about the scoring rubric, in that once you write that down, if you make a decision against that, based on, and that decision potentially based on the interview, it just opens up a lot of opportunity for challenges or public scandal, even if it's not legally binding, but it certainly wouldn't look good, right? Even if you had the right intentions there. And then, Councillor Belts, I'll keep an open mind regarding the concept of out of town individuals. One thing that did come up on the Arts and Culture Commission recently is that gosh, I mean, if people are out of town, we can always invite them to meetings. They're open meetings. They can be as involved as they want to. They just wouldn't be able to vote. And so there's absolutely ways for people to really get involved if they wanted to. You don't have to be a voting member of that board or commission to do that. So the way that it is right now, I don't see it as being exclusionary. I would look at the benefit of adding additional members from outside of our town borders to help fill some of those vacancies. But I still have a little heartburn about that. So just shared those thoughts with y'all. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Carey.
I think when the last time that they rewrote the charter and made it a week mayor form of government, they anticipated the 10-year term that Oberst ended up serving. So I think it was visionary on their part. Okay. Listen, I think there are some things here that we can move forward that you kind of asked, Madam Mayor, what we thought. And so I'm going to click a few of those off without diving into this circuitous sort of a thing that we're working our way in, which is good discussion. But I think we can move some of this forward. In the process section, the question was asked about, how do we, when we're promoting this and we have it out there, the advertising period, call it, my opinion is that we should say, rather than closing date, we say that review of applications will begin on such and such a date, and it is open until filled. So it would not preclude someone from applying late. If we look at whoever the we is, look and say, gee, we need to recruit some more people. We're not out of luck with that. We can still go get them. So I think that would be well within any human resources scrutiny, and I think it would give us some flexibility. I think when we vet and acknowledge the applicants, I think we ought to, and it might be too late, I guess I have to think about this. We need to find a way to route them to the information, I'd call it that, rather than the charter. Each of our, if you look on the city webpage, you go into that and it tells you what they do. And so we can share that a bit to Rebecca's point. Let's let people know, let's help them so they can be articulate in what they are looking at. I would, then if we go to the scoring rubric, I think the sort of the arbitrary 0 to, it's not arbitrary 0 to 5, but I think if we could give some indication of what a 0 is and what a 5 is, and then we can sort of work those shades of gray on our own. But I think that should be done. I would like to suggest that on the 1, 2, 3, fourth one down, we say, what do you hope to accomplish or contribute as a member of this board and commission? We're talking about budget and we're talking about planning. I think accomplish should be stricken. That if they've got something that they want to accomplish in either one of those, that tells me that there's likely an agenda there. So, if we would, what do you hope to contribute? I think that's a more germane one. And then finally, on the questions, and somebody asked, maybe Carol mentioned that what would you say is the biggest issue or concern facing Monmouth right now, and how would it affect the border? That is going to really isolate people that are sort of in the know. So I would like to see that one struck, actually. And they may not be aware of those things, and they would say, well, I don't know, I like finances, or I like, and then we ought to have a battery of questions, and they could be fairly, bulleted for planning and for budget. I think we could have like the three overarching, and then, hit like, what familiarity do you have with land use plans? That's going to allow for a discussion. What about zoning ordinances? What about long-term planning for growth? What are your thoughts on that? That would kind of get to your point earlier. What is, Madam Mayor, what are your thoughts about, or your feelings about, or whatever the term was? And then we've got some that would be budget that we could, and might be more into the interview thing. So those would be some thoughts, and I hope, at least for concrete consideration, if not tonight, sometime in the future. Thank
you. And yeah, just to note, as you say, the questions on the scoring rubric are actually the questions on the application. So every board and commission does fill out those questions. So what do you hope to accomplish, or what do you hope to contribute, would apply equally to Parks and Rec and to budget, but we don't score the Parks and Rec applications in this same way. Councilor Salinas Olivero.
I don't know if we wanted to come back to this or not. I was just going to go down with what Councilor Carey had just done. And so, yes, the promoting and advertising, yes, we need to extend that. We need to really think about how we're doing that. Vetting applicants, rounding them to information. Yeah, we can do that, I think, but I think we can also do better at that. I don't think just telling them, go here, click here. I think we need to think further on that. The scoring rubric, that's going to be the upfront that we were talking about, letting everybody know about the boards and commission, what to expect. Here's the application. And yes, I mean, as a teacher, you definitely want to allow those who are applying or finishing an assignment know what a 1 is, what a 2 is, what a 3 is, how they can earn those. I do think we should, as Mayor Coons was pointing out, the accomplishment in, what do you hope to accomplish or contribute? I think that's a telling one, because as Councilor Carey was saying, that somebody could come in with an agenda. Well, I think we should know that if that's the case. If they say something and then we're like, woo, red flag. I mean, I think it's a good one to keep in there. And then specific questions to the specific boards. I think that's very valid. And I think, you have, as long as you're asking the same questions on the same boards too, I think that would be fine. And that's something that we can come back to, but that's all I have for that. And we can discuss further later.
Councilor Oberst.
Can't hear you.
Darn, I've been doing so well too. As I was looking at possible interview questions, I thought these are really the questions that want to be on the application for those two boards. I think we may want to have a completely different form for planning and budget, because those are such important boards. And, one of the things, as Lane mentioned, I think there's a limit of 2 real estate involved people on the planning commission. So we need to know right off the top, if somebody applies, that, gee whiz, we're sorry, those 2 positions are already filled. Would you like to serve on a different board? We can hold on to your application for planning, and should one of those slots open up.
And John, just a second, when you finish, I'm going to have Phyllis speak to that, because she does this vetting currently, and I don't know how she does that. So go ahead and finish, and then I'll have her address that.
Okay. And I actually kind of shortened up a couple of these questions. Tell us what you know or have learned about your commission's role in Monmouth's government, not work over the past few years necessarily, but what does your board do in Monmouth's government? That'll give us a really clear picture of, does this person understand what this board does? And instead of how they're going to work on this committee, say a little how you work with others to make effective decisions. General question. How do you work with other people to get to decisions? I throw a tantrum until I get my way. So, and then the last one, and this gets around to, is there an agenda? This is from, just sort of scratch this out as I sat here. Are there any decisions this board or commission has made in the past that you particularly agree or disagree with? And, that might be another one that would get at that. Yeah, I'm going to get in there and fix that planning commission. And finally, what do you think the job of this board is kind of, maybe I may have already brought that one up. I do think one, and I'll just mention this quickly because I want to go on, but I think we need to come around at some point to the issue of, we have two people on the planning commission that have been there for over 20 years. We have somebody on the parks board who's been there well over 30. Those two on planning are the two real estate positions. Do we need to look at term limits? Do we need to look at, when they apply for reappointment, it's almost just automatic that people get reappointed. And do we need to say, no, at the end of your term, it's the end of your term and you need to reapply from scratch? I don't know. I'm throwing those out there because this was something that I wrestled with and had no good answers for. So I'm turning it to these other 6 good brains to come up with answers. Thank you.
And I just want to clarify on that before I turn it back to Phyllis. Do you think that is that reappointment process for all boards and commissions, or you're saying just planning and budget?
Yes. I don't know the answer to that, Cease. I really don't. And look, this is a guy who values institutional memory like nobody's business. Okay. I think it's hugely important. But when you've got 2 out of 9 seats on the planning commission providing that function for 20 years, I don't remember how many seats there are on planning. And we have, of course, the senior. Yeah, and I'm not sure how many are on senior board, but Roxanne, it might address your thoughts of bringing in outsiders if we, said if it was a large board, have 2, but just on that board, Well, see, so maybe we need to expand the size of, and the full name of that is the Senior Advisory Board. So it does advise the activities of that senior center. So
there's 9 of them already, and we can't keep them filled. So yeah, do we expand it to help keep it filled? Phyllis, do you want to talk a little bit just about what you do when you get each application, because you do vet for residency and things? How do you do that?
I do look for the residency part, and then you were saying planning commission for real estate people. I have not had to ask them because they put on the application, this is what I do, this is my experience. And so we have not had somebody, well, maybe once. We did actually have one person who applied since I've been here that was a real estate person. And I told them, no, they couldn't apply because we had someone on there that was already, or 2 people that were real estate. I do have to throw in here a personal note. I was on the planning commission. I had no experience with the planning commission. I knew nothing about it, but I learned and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I also had a willingness to serve. So I'm throwing that out.
and you were good at it, Phyllis.
Well, Joan Goralnik always asked the questions I wanted to answer first.
Well, and I think that's what we're talking about, Phyllis. And I thank you for sharing that example because we need to make sure this does talk about interests and perspective and not just experience. But so you don't think we need to add a question about occupation, because hopefully people would mention that in their answers about why they're applying or what their relevant experience is.
I think for the most part, there shouldn't be a way to miss that, because I either know that they were or they say that they are. So I'm not sure that one's relevant for planning commission.
Okay. Thanks. Councilor Lopez?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Phyllis, for sharing your history and background there on planning. I really love that, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we're looking for people with that willingness, that drive to serve, and that should supersede that existing skill set. We can teach them. We could teach people skills. You can't teach people their own unique perspectives, their own backgrounds, their own life experience and their own drive. And so that's really what we need to make sure that we continue to put a lot of interest behind, a lot of energy behind. Is there any way that we can't make, or is there any reason we can't make lower the threshold of entry by, instead of making this a PDF you have to download and fill out and walk in, making it into something that we can allow people to fill out via a web form? People are online more and more these days, and I know that it would generate some changes to the existing website. Some of that we've already talked about. And so if we're getting in there and tinkering with things, allow it to be a web form, and really help us through that web form in being able to recruit and being able to kind of open those doors.
It is a fillable PDF. We do not have things that are web forms beyond that. We don't have that available.
Yeah, I know what we have right now, and that it is that fillable PDF. But you fill it out, you print it out, you walk it in.
No, you can send it in.
Oh,
I have
email it.
people that email them all the time.
So download it, email it. I'm just saying that we're making something that would take one step. We're making it take 5. And just lowering that barrier to entry. So
When we get a webmaster, Chris, and somebody who manages all that for us, we may have the current expertise to do what you're asking. So,
well, my hope would be that when we're in there making some of these other changes, adding video, adding other links, adding other information, that it would be possible. That would be my hope, although hopes and dreams are what they are. Look at us here. We're having a virtual meeting. Just a few years ago it was not possible. So
it's amazing what we can. If we can get some internship help or hire somebody to do some of this work, then those would definitely be skills we would love to have, so that we can modernize several things like this. Because the fillable PDF is a fairly new phenomenon. So I'm hearing some tweaks, right? And I think I'm hearing more about the recruitment process. I think this answered some of the questions that I have about our form or our process. Interesting thought about changing this so those interview questions, for example, might be part of the regular application for budget and planning, in which case you might not need an interview, because the group kind of scoring it would take that into consideration. So do people want to see that, a separate application that's more detailed for budget and planning? Maybe make them go to a few extra steps. And then again, the interview process may not be necessary. We may be able to just tell from the additional questions. But and this is all assuming we have lots of extra applicants for vacancies. We don't always do that. So this whole time we've spent may not be used more than once or twice a year. Councilor Salinas Olivares, did you have something before Councilor Obers?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to say that, yes, for that extra step for planning and for budget committee. So you could have the application that everybody has. That one isn't very extensive. And then you do have, and here's summary questions. I mean, the state of Oregon used to have stuff like that where you had to, turn in supplementary questions. And it wouldn't be, I mean, you're looking at what, maybe 4, you're not looking at like tons of interview questions or questions for them to answer. But because the boards are pretty extensive, to me, if they can't answer the application and the questions because there's only going to be 3 or 4, then are they going to be detailed on the planning or, care that much? So I don't think it would be too much more to ask for those 2 commissions, but that's just my opinion.
And John O.
Just a quick look back on the question about real estate entanglements for planning. Lane, I think that says not just are you involved in real estate, but or is anybody in your house involved in real estate? Is anybody in your family involved in real estate? Check me on that, because it's almost like the potential and actual conflict of interest stuff. And I think that, we may not know that we have somebody who has a kid who's a realtor in town or something like that, who's on the planning commission. So I just would, I would like to revisit that and just make sure. And if it is that broader question, I think maybe it is important to put on a planning application.
No, the statute says, here's the language, no more than 2, this is from the state statute. No more than 2 voting members of the commission may engage principally in the buying, selling, or developing of real estate for profit as individuals, or be members of any partnership or officers or employees of any corporations that engages principally in the buying, selling, or developing of real estate for profit. Interesting, the statute has not been amended since 1975, so apparently you could be a member of a limited liability company, and this prohibition doesn't count. That's very curious. But it also says no more than 2 members shall be engaged in the same kind of occupation, business, trade, or profession. So it's addressed to the members, not to the members' family. However, if a conflict situation comes up for a vote, then you would look at family relationships. But just for membership itself, to be able to serve, it's looking only at the members.
Thank you, sir. And Councillor Carey?
I like the idea of expanding the application for planning and for budget. I think we could ask and allow for written response on that, because the things that we'd like to know about their knowledge or feelings or perception of growth and budget, of planning and budget rather, are probably best articulated when they've got a chance to think about it and actually write something, and not in a pop quiz format, which might seem to be in an interview. So I would be supportive of that. And I would also be supportive of asking, and probably in budget and in planning, once terms, a person's term has expired, that they reapply and go through the same sort of, call it scrutiny, as new applicants would, and it would. There are some attitudes that get sort of frozen, and it might be time to thaw some of them out. And we would know that if we had a chance to really have an application. So just 2 parting thoughts.
Thanks. Phyllis?
Would you like to see all the reapplications? Because I have to fill them out again. I don't send them all to you because there's 20 or 30 every year. I mean, I could do that.
My reference was to planning and budget.
Oh, just planning and budget, not all the other ones? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But if we change any of the questions on this one, we might want to see them all, right? If we, particularly if we have some other questions about Right, and I'm not sure we will have supplemental questions on anything else, but we still might want to see them all as first-time counselor.
Me? You cut yourself off before you said my name, at least at my end. So that might, Phyllis's comment might point to staggering the ends of terms more and having a couple of boards that end in October instead of everybody ending June 30th. I don't know, just throwing that out there as an idea.
Okay, any last thoughts on this? I have, before I revise and redraft and resend out, in looking, I think we do have at least one vacancy on the budget committee. So we are going to have to go through this process again, sort of as a trial. And the only question I didn't really hear a lot of discussion about is, I don't think we need to have the whole council see and score the applications or consider the answers, right? So I think that's still a subgroup kind of committee. Is everyone okay with that? At least one other person sort of eyes on whoever's available during that time. Okay, thanks. Okay, other final thoughts?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two other things that we touched on briefly, but I don't think we talked about in depth, and that's okay at a later date. But just ask you all to really give some attention to that concept of term limits. Is really intriguing, and also the concept of optional, with the underline of optional, demographic info. I think that we don't know what we have until we measure it, and so giving people the opportunity to report that, self-report that, would help us to kind of know what direction we're going and assist in some of those recruiting processes.
Okay, thanks. And Jono?
On your notion of having a subgroup or one or more council advisors, I would urge rotating that duty around and not using the same person or people over and over again. Get a bingo ball tumbler and take the first three that come out or something like that.
Well, and budgets, once a year, right? So you don't get too many chances, and you're either probably going to have a different mayor or some different counselors to do that. So that would sort of by nature rotate, but planning, and you never know when those will come up. And that's not true. If we start opening this up and really encouraging additional applications, we will have true vacancies every year, right? Because a third of the membership of each of these committees turns over. And if the end of their term, we say, we're going to open it up. And instead of saying we don't have any vacancies because we know everyone's going to reapply, we say we have 3 vacancies. The returning members plus whoever else applies. So if we change our language about that a little bit, we have 3 open positions. Then potentially, obviously, that does mean this process will happen every year. So, okay. Well, thank you all for taking this time. I thought this might be a good evening to do this when we didn't have a heavy agenda, and we could generate some more thoughts around this. And I'll redraft and visit with Phyllis again about seeing how we can fit this all in. That would be great. Thank you. So moving on for reports tonight, Mayor's report. I don't have much for you. So I will actually move on to reports of boards and commissions. And unfortunately, I was not able to attend our senior advisory board meeting last week. Got delayed at work, so I don't have a board or commission report. Who else has something for us? Councilor Salinas Oliveros and Councilor Oberst, then Councilor McKee.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually going to report on the Historic Commission that met September 1st that I completely did not go to. It fell on the 1st on a Wednesday and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So yes, I profusely apologize to Ms. Duffner, who always is amazing and sends out information. So I am going to make up for that by reporting on what was talked about on September 1st. So there was an election of new officers. Nita Wilson was reelected as chairperson, and Jim Mannion was elected as vice chair. The National Register comment form. So the commission reviewed the National Register nomination that was submitted by Liz Carter for the residents located on 342 Monmouth Avenue South. The State Historic Preservation Office will be reviewing the application at their virtual meeting scheduled for October 21st, 2021. So let's hope that that goes through. And they did ask for feedback from the commission about application, if they had any objections or concerns, and there were none. So Chairperson Nita Wilson signed the evaluation sheet, indicated and sent that out for the National Register. So hopefully we'll have a really good announcement about that after October 21st. And then George Jeffrey and Jim Mannion shared their experience at the August 25th Howell House 130th birthday celebration. And Emily McNulty offered the Carriage House as a meeting space for the Historic Commission in the future. And Suzanne Duffner provided an update on the Railroad Mural Project. She is reaching out to the business owner to confirm the final mural design and secure an easement for the mural. And then city staff are also pursuing potential grant funds for the mural through Oregon Heritage Grant Program and Oregon Arts. Other potential grant sources that were suggested: Oregon Community Foundation and Polk County Cultural Coalition. The commission is scheduled to give their annual presentation to council on November 2nd, and commissioners can attend virtually or in person, safely wearing a mask. And then Suzanne Duffner did note, and she did mention the passing of Scott MacArthur, author of Monmouth, Oregon, The Saga of a Small Town, and expressed gratitude regarding the legacy he has left with respect to historic preservation in Monmouth. Our next meeting is tomorrow night, and I will be there. Thank you.
I saw Councilor McKeel's hand up ahead of mine, and I would defer to her.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to report on the tree board. We had our summer sabbatical and we are ready to rock and roll again. So the trees, I just wanted to actually offer a gratitude. I'm trying to say commendation. I'm trying to offer gratitude to the city's facility department. The trees that we planted during Arbor Day in spring 2021 are still alive in Madrona Park. So thank you to all of the city staff that were responsible for watering them during those really hot summer days and the month that we had. The tree board is planning to do a fall planting. They're looking again at Madrona Park. There's a slope on the east side of the basketball court, and the board thinks this would be a great place to plant those trees that get really large, such as the Dawn redwood, the big leaf maple, some redwoods. Lori Alberts, a board member, has some coast redwoods and Douglas firs that need to be placed in the ground. So we may be putting in those trees because the price can't be beat. The board also thinks there'd be ideal trees for this in the park is to in the wet areas. And again, Lori has some willows that could be planted and that would survive the wet soil. We've actually lost some trees in the past because the soil was too late. So when we do plan to, I think with maybe Chuck is going to check with the Parks Department to make sure that the plantings that we are going to be doing by the basketball court are going to be in sync with park plans. We don't want to put in these great big firs and then find out that they were going to do something else in that area. Also, south of the play area, Madrona, are 2 round patches of dirt where we have planted trees in the past, but they've died. And so those are 2 places that we're going to definitely be planting in November. And here's the big thing you need to know. On Saturday, November 13th at 9 a.m. at Madrona Park, we'll be planting trees. Bring your shovel. You won't have to pay for it this time. We will do it free. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, come by if you want to help plant trees. We have a lot of fun. And if it rains, it feels so Oregonian. The board's also going to be finding out what the board talked about, replacing some of the street trees that have been damaged by the ice storm, and Chuck's going to be checking on that. So Councilor Carey, you're going to love this one. Gordon Taylor, the chairperson for the tree board, did check on those crepe myrtles on Powell Street and found out that there's I think 3 of them. You must have noticed they definitely aren't trees anymore, and it would take some real heavy pruning, and then after that a lot of close attention in order to get them back up to trees. So Gordon said this isn't something that the tree board is going to be able to take on because it's actually going to require a chainsaw, and I for one won't be doing that. And then we'd have a lot of clippings. So the question is, what do you want to do with those crepe myrtles? And I did go out and took pictures of them so the council can see them. If you would like, I can show you them really quickly. Anybody interested in looking at them to have an idea of what they are?
Oh, I think we've got the experts on the job, so we'll let the tree board kind of look at that and think that through, and Public Works certainly. So, but
yeah, and they actually fit. They kind of fit with one of the residents there has kind of incorporated how that myrtle looks with other bushes on the property. So it's not like, wow, what happened to that thing? So it might be okay. So the last thing I wanted to say is that we have reached out to WOU and OSU asking for students to apply to our tree board. We did get one OSU student who's come our last meeting time, and he put me on to another way of possibly recruiting students. So we could have some young people joining our tree board is our hope. And that's the story from Lake Wobegon.
thanks, Councilor Oberst.
If I can get my mouse to behave. So I actually have 3, I'm sorry, but I'll try to be as quick as I can. The first one is parks. In August, the Parks Board went to Main Street Park and looked around and spotted things that needed to be fixed and repaired, and raked the fall material under and drive those spikes in farther and so on. Russ came out of there with a good list of maintenance chores that needed to be done. Last month on the 8th, the Parks Board visited both Madrona and Gentle Woods, and again came out with a good list of projects that needed to be attended to. One of the big ones in Gentle Woods was a lot of the ice storm debris that fell on the far side of the creek was just piled up there, and it had become a pile of firewood basically. And in the wet season, they couldn't get at it because they come around from the farmer's field, and the farmer said, "I've got a crop growing, you can't come in." Well, now's the time. And so Russ was figuring sometime before middle of next week, he hopes to have that all chipped up and out of there. We will be meeting next, not tomorrow, but next Wednesday at 6 p.m. to have a look at Monmouth Recreational Park. and see how it looks and how it relates to the Parks Master Plan. And if it is inclement weather, Russ has volunteered his wonderful new meeting room at the Public Works Department. So if anyone's interested in joining, that's where you find us if the weather is not good. I also had a traffic committee meeting, traffic commission meeting, traffic safety. The 99 and church pylons that we have all seen slowly disappearing thanks to trucks and farm equipment are under review by ODOT. We made a recommendation to paint some additional no parking on Madrona on the east side of the highway. It was kind of clogged up right there, and that's one of our busier intersections. Those have been painted and are having the desired salutary effect on traffic flow. Traffic safety came in the person of Russ and gave us a report at our last meeting. And the only new business item was the Bramblewood apartments that are on Stephanie. Folks driving out of the parking lot into the street without necessarily paying attention to the fact that they need to yield to traffic that is on the street. And so the police department is looking at how to maybe come up with a sign for the driveway that says, oh, by the way, it's important. And then the last item I have, ODOT committed back before the big project on Highway 99 to come in after the project and have a look at bike ped safety. And so we had, I think, 5 people from ODOT, everyone from the bike ped coordinator for our area. And it was interesting because when I was involved with ODOT in the past, there was one bike ped coordinator for the state, and they now have one per region. So we have, our own person now. And there seems to be a lot of stress on ODOT's part on understanding that if we are in fact going to address climate change and global warming, that we need to help make it easier for people to walk and bike. And so where the truck and agriculture industries have kind of had hegemony on what happens on Oregon's roads, there's a little bit of a creep towards paying more attention to bike ped things. As I arrived, there were 2 ODOT people standing back in the grass away from the corner of Church and 99 across from the police station as school let out. And so they got the full meal deal of what goes on at that Church Street intersection at the end of the school day. And I think they were kind of horrified. They definitely had some ideas about some things we could do. As you may remember, we have a Safe Routes to School planning grant, and we haven't heard anything back on that yet, but eventually we hope to get that grant so we can start planning for how to actually do some Safe Routes to School. This would be one of them. We then walked all the way down to Gwynn Street as a group. They saw some of the other problems along the way. We had 2 or 3 citizens, myself included, who I was being there as a citizen, not as a counselor, making suggestions for how we might address some of these. And then we got to Madrona and the problems there. Now, Councilor Carey, in the past, you've indicated surprise that we can't get an RFB there. And ODOT's ruling has been you can't have signal devices closer than 1,200 feet. And that's about 900 feet from the traffic light. And then the woman from the signals department said, well, that's been changing. And in certain cases, it can be as low as 250 feet. So we may be seeing, that's what I'm talking about this major change in approach. And so, Russ has come up with an idea of maybe an island in the middle of 99 on the south leg of that intersection. So you wouldn't be able to turn northbound to westbound anymore. You'd have to either go to High Street or remember to turn at Gwynn. But that would give pedestrians a place to stop halfway across. And we might be able to get to RFBs at that intersection at some point. The thing that we came to understand, and Russ was really good about explaining this, is everybody who lives in that southeast quadrant of town who's southbound on the highway turns into Madrona to go home, or almost everybody. And if Gwynn Street finally comes out next to the church, that will help take some of the pressure off of that intersection. That's a big if, I think. Who knows when that happens. There were some mutterings from one ODOT person that they have thought about a roundabout for that intersection if it ever makes a full 4-way connection, which I would be 100% in favor of. So So it was a very instructional walk for the ODOT people and for us to get their perspective, for them to get ours. We then walked all the way back to the police station and kind of, stood there and talked about the what we had seen and what they're going to go pursue. And the goal of this is to come out with projects that are designed and vetted by ODOT as, yeah, you can do that. So we can take some of our street money and invest in improving those intersections because ODOT has already signed off. So sorry that was long-winded, but it was an amazing afternoon of walking up and down the highway and seeing what's going on through, everybody, all these different sets of eyes. It was a very instructional day. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
Oh, thank you for that report. That's great. Good information. And I guess maybe it wouldn't have helped to have them all come out and do that 3 years ago when they were still operating under the old rules. So I guess we hit that at the right time. That's great. Other boards and commissions, Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and lots of board and commission action here being reported on tonight. I love it. It's very topical, especially given our discussion for our work session. I have 3 reports tonight, and I do promise to be very brief. First and foremost, I'm going to start just up at the top with the Arts and Culture Commission. As it's noted, we do have a couple openings, and we would love if there's anyone that that would be interested in joining our commission. Our next meeting is on October 21st at 7 p.m. and would love to have any interested parties join. We are still meeting virtually, just as many boards and commissions are, but we're doing a lot. The Arts and Culture Commission has recently supported the Hispanic Heritage Month activities here in town, which have been fantastic. I believe our wonderful mayor, I saw our wonderful mayor, as well as the mayor of Independence, come together in Main Street Park and read a multicultural children's novel, or children's book, not novel. And it was really fantastic, and some really just emotive reading, which I enjoyed watching. So yes, we're also supporting that initiative in assisting in the purchase of one of the banners that will be hung along Main Street for Hispanic Heritage Month. Really just excited to be able to, as a commission, really excited to be able to start taking part in some of these other existing programs and just finding ways to connect and support the community through the celebration of our own local arts and culture. Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, we had a special meeting. It was a very last-minute add-in meeting that occurred last week, and the topic of it, and the reason I'll bring it up to you here, the topic of it was very brief, but really exciting. HUD had given us the opportunity to very quickly apply for a youth homelessness demonstration program grant. It's one of the very specific programs that HUD allocates monies through each year. And this was unique. Usually the process with a continuum of care and the process with creating this organization surrounding it, if you'll all recall from when we were electing for Monmouth to participate, the process is oftentimes very drawn out, right? You create the continuum, you gather data, you create the continuum, you gather all the the individuals and the organizations that are working in that sphere in the region. You start gathering data, you standardize that data so you're able to report it up to HUD. You're able to then start to leverage some of this to bring federal funding back into the community. And really, this was just we've taken a little bit of a shorter route there. Normally, this takes many years before we're starting to see any of that come back. But HUD, I believe, had some unallocated funds that they needed to spend quickly, and so we were actually able to apply for these. These are technically funds from fiscal year 2019 that they had to see out the door. And so I don't know the status of that application yet, but the fact that HUD reached out to us and say, hey, you know, we have this money that we want to go to your region, please apply. It really speaks wonderful, wonderful story for all the hard work that's gone on in that board. So, and through the continuum. I'd also like to, and the next meeting of the Homeless Alliance is October 14th, another Thursday at 3 p.m. And then my final report here is MyNet. There's really a couple things that I'd like to share with you regarding the recent MyNet board meeting. And I did not have an opportunity to attend the full meeting. I was out of town for a family member's funeral, so I was attending virtually from a different time zone. But I did get into the meat of it, and two really big things that I'd like to bring to you. First, we approved the details of the fiscal year 21-22 debt service payment for MyNet toward the debt service. And if you'll recall, there's two debt service payments. One, at the first half of the year, one the second half of the year. So this is the first one for 21-22, and MyNet is contributing $618,000 to that debt service payment. That's just over 75% of that payment, which anyone who's familiar with the history of all this knows that, gosh, that's a big ways to come. This is the most that the organization has ever contributed to that payment, and we are on track and forecasting. Again, being able to cover the entirety of the second half of the year debt payment. Why would we be able to cover 75% of one and the entirety of the other? Well, it has to do with operational budgets and how they ebb and flow throughout the year. But very, very exciting that we'll be able to, we've made such great strides in being able to bring this organization really into its own here. The other thing that I'd like to touch on with MyNet is, and I believe I've mentioned this in previous reports, is just a real huge thanks to our former general manager, Don Patton, who is officially retired at this point. He is an individual that has left a huge mark on the organization, and as a member of the city and a subscriber to MyNet, I really just cannot say, I can't state enough how wonderful his touch has been on that, and his guiding hand has helped us to bring it from the place that it was in the past to the real fully realized organization that it is today. And I'll remind you that MyNet was founded to do something that private industry wouldn't do, and to do it in a way that they couldn't do in our town. And MyNet has really succeeded in that charge very well, and we're very much looking forward to see the next steps as we begin to embark on our search for our next general manager. And that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you. Councillor McKeel, and then Councillor Carey.
I just have an addendum to Councillor Lopez's Arts Commission report. Oh, my phone just stopped. There is the product and our brilliant counselor who's, this was for Brainstorm, and you'll notice it's outside maps. So if you haven't seen it yet, there's two outside maps take a look. They're wonderful. And the other one is at Counselor Salinas Oliveros. You have to help me remember. Where are the other 3 at?
So we have one at Talmadge Middle School, and that one was so, I guess, easy when I asked, only because they are learning and celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month at Talmadge Middle School. So they were very happy to put this up in their main hallway for all the students to see. And then the other one is outside of Independence Elementary School, and that was, again, really pleasant greeting that yes, that this will be put up, and they were really happy about that. And then there's another one right outside of the district office, Central School District, right on 5th. And so 2 at Main Street, and then those are the other ones. So it's a nice long walk if you want to go walking, but they're beautiful stories. And I do want to thank Counselor Belts, who designed these banners, and really they're absolutely gorgeous. She spent time, tears, pain all over it, but very great work. And so all of this couldn't have happened without the collaborations. It couldn't have happened with the families that agreed to be interviewed from Oregon Child Development Coalition, and for their collaboration, Western Freedom Center, who also collaborated and helped us with the interviews, and then City of Monmouth as well, who sponsored these. So it was a wonderful collaboration, really great work. Audrey Caro was integral as well. She's took photos and came up with interview questions. So thank you to everybody who participated in this really great project.
Yeah, thanks, Counselor Carey. And then Counselor Oberst.
Planning Commission meets tomorrow night. They've got a public hearing on a development in the Ash Creek area. One of the things of substance I would just ask Counselor Lopez to put in his quiver and perhaps report back to us, and that is what MyNet's thought is regarding the loss of Easy Video and basically video going away as a MyNet service, and the problem with that might be, and it was a concern always, is that that will complicate things. MyNet will no longer be a triple play option, and so the concern would be is that they'll lose subscribers. So, and again, no need for a response right now, but at some point I'd be curious to know what their thinking on that is.
If I may, Councilor Robus, my apologies there. Councilor Carey, I'm glad that you brought that up. And, as I stated, I was not able to attend the entirety of that meeting. The portion that I did attend, that topic was, was one that I wasn't able to speak on, but as it is in the public sphere there, what I can tell you is that we are looking at additional options. We are, exploring how to handle this in a way that it quite frankly has, as much of a forward-thinking and forward-looking, outlook as possible. For a little bit of background about the Easy Video consideration that Councilor Carey brought up, essentially Easy Video, the provider, is going away, and so that's of concern. Where we're left in a spot where we have to figure out what we can best do, both for us as an organization and for the individuals that we serve. As an organization, our responsibility there always draws back to the cities and to the taxpayers as well. So it's a bit of a delicate balancing act. From what I can tell, I think if we look back at the history of MyNet as an organization recently, really we lean so incredibly heavily on our staff. And you know, one of the big differences between MyNet and, you know, other institutions like that are service providers is that when you call, the person that you get is someone in your community here. A lot of them are WU graduates. They're individuals that use that service as well. And so, not that this isn't concerning, because it certainly is, but I believe that we have the human infrastructure there to be able to figure out the right path along this in a way that, you know, we're able to give everybody the best service possible. So while I don't have any firm answers, it is a rapidly developing situation, and that Easy Video is going away. But what will replace that and what that will look like, I can tell you that we're working hard on it, but more information to come.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously that has implications for folks who are not as tech savvy. Some people aren't using Easy Video anyway, right? They're getting those same television programming options different ways, but helping our community members through that who aren't as tech savvy is what we hope to be able to do, I think. Councilor Ober?
I'd like to start by echoing Chris's earlier comments about Don Patton. I had the honor of attending a little retirement gathering in his home, and I handed him a card, and the inscription I put on that card I feel very strongly about, and I am so glad he came to our fair city to take over our experiment in municipally owned telecom. And it was a long uphill climb, but, you know, I'm getting the impression that MyNet is really starting to make a dent in the Dallas market. And, you know, as we continue that, Don has said before that MyNet owns Monmouth Independence, and if they can pick up Dallas too, and so on, you know, it's just, he's done a fabulous job. He took the initiative to develop that whole Dallas plan and find the investors who wanted to join with us in extending services to that city. So, you know, innovative thinker. Sorry he's retiring. Glad he's retiring. He deserves it. And I would say that, geez, it's been 10 years, you know, 5 to 10 years ago now that Don appeared at council, and I said, well, how long does cable TV have to live? And he said 10 years, maybe a little longer. And so I think traditional cable, you know, we may not have a whole lot of competition from the other providers, because almost nobody's buying cable anymore. They'd rather buy the specific products that they want to watch and stream it. And having gigabit internet gives us the ability to stream like nobody's business. So, you know, it's going to be a change. And yeah, Madam Mayor, we're going to have to help some folks figure it out, but I think it's figurable-outable. So anyway, good on Don, good on MyNet. Let's keep going.
Great, thank you. Any other board and commission reports? Since it's been a month since we've met, I know it feels like a lot here tonight. Okay, and our city manager, again, as I mentioned, is not with us this evening. She did send out her report in advance to us. I did want to point out in there, we are in the middle of launching a downtown improvement plan. Our able community and economic development director, Suzanne Duffner, is recruiting folks who are interested in being a part of that. She would love to have youth. She's reaching out to our school system for that. Love to have a lot of different folks who have an interest in planning the future of downtown. And so reaching out to S. Duffner at ci.monmouth.or.us, or her phone number would be great, by October 15th. She's trying to get that steering committee together, and then they'll be launching various ways for all of us to give input on our downtown improvement plan. So that was one thing I wanted to highlight. from Marty's report. Phyllis, was there anything else that has come up that you that we need to share out here?
Glad you asked. I was asked by Finance Director Chenard to let the council know that the budget documents, the hard copies, are going to be available at City Hall for you to pick up. That's from last year's budget.
Yeah, thanks. Since we're a few months into it, good to have a copy if we need it. Thank you. All right. Are there any other council comments or announcements before the motion to adjourn? Councilor Lopez and Councilor McKee.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I wanted to report on the League of Oregon Cities Local Government People of Color Caucus, of which I'm the sitting vice president for. This is the first representative caucus built under the umbrella of the League of Oregon Cities, and I'm really excited to now have a sister caucus, pun not intended, to be joining us with the Women's Caucus. So really wonderful work going on in the league. I think both of these initiatives will have long-term implications, both within our, League of Oregon Cities, within our local communities, and within the structure of our future representative governments. The People of Color Caucus, we do meet every other month. Generally on the first Friday of the month. However, that's that may change, is up for reevaluation at our next annual membership meeting. That annual membership meeting is coming up, and I just had the date up. The annual membership meeting is coming up on Wednesday, October 20th at 3 p.m. It's a virtual call. And then we'll also have an affinity group meeting following that on Friday morning. I don't have the specific time of that. This affinity group is something that we would normally have held in conjunction with the League of Oregon Cities annual convention, but that has not that's been canceled. But we're still moving forward. For those of you that may not have heard about the People of Color Caucus, I'll read just very briefly a little bit about who we are and what we're doing. Oregon is really embracing and recognizing its multicultural heritage more and more so every day. And the history and our current situation with it. And local governments are now beginning to reflect that diversity. So really exciting to see the league be a part of leading the charge there. We promote positive and effective relationships among city officials of color, their communities, people or political leaders, and League of Oregon City affiliate entities. We also build and increase capacity of city officials and support a pipeline for people of color to engage in and serve in local government. So I know that we talked a little bit about things that were in conjunction with with this drive earlier tonight when we were talking about our boards and commission process. And would just encourage you, because I know that all of you are incredibly well connected within other individuals within our communities and other cities that are elected individuals or individuals that are interested in becoming elected officials. Please do share the information. Please share my contact information with anyone that might be interested in joining. As I said, this is the People of Color Caucus. We don't have any authenticating metrics or anything like that. We just want people that, anyone that thinks that they could contribute or benefit from this information and from coming to please come and get involved. And I'm more than happy to pave the way for that. Also, I'd like to call out, very exciting, that we have our own webpage now. Yay! It is a subpage of the League of Oregon Cities website, and you can find it. You can find more information about the caucus there.
Well, thank you for sharing that. All right, any other announcements and Councilor McKeel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine's very short. I just wanted to remind everybody that this coming Saturday will be the last story time at Independence Riverview Park, featuring our own Police Chief Isaiah Haynes. So I'm not sure if he's still there or not. And I just wanted to encourage everybody to go out and look on the Facebook page. Thank you, Chief Haynes, for coming this Saturday. And it will also be Chief Mason and Officer Cruz who will be reading the story. So great fun will be this Saturday. And on the Facebook page, thank you, Councilor Lopez, for those wonderful pictures. And everybody has to go see our own wonderful mayor doing dramatic presentation of the stories. Is very good. And thank you for that. And also thank you, Councilor Carey, for coming out to help with the crafts. And the kid left without doing the craft anyway, but it was nice to have you there.
Right. I think that's it. So, motion to adjourn. Oh, and
There's one more
Councilor-
thing. I'm so sorry. On October 15th is the last celebration for the Hispanic Latino Heritage Month. It's going to be at the new Freedom Center in the Werner Center at WOU. And from 6 to 8 o'clock, there'll be great music and hors d'oeuvres, so come and have dinner. But it'd be really great. This last celebration was put on by the students of color with the Freedom Center, so it'd be great to have everybody there. October 15th, Friday.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I would move adjournment.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, thanks, everybody. And
Thanks,
thank you
Al.
for your
Good to
time.
see everybody.
Thank you. Good night. Take care.
Chuck, for
Night.
hanging in here, and
Good night.
and Isaiah